Good morning, my friends. This is Paul, and mere minutes after I finished recording my Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia regular review, I decided that I'm going to talk about the game from my Catholic perspective. And let me just get this out there right of the way so that if you're thinking that I'm going to over-theologize this, you can just turn off this video right now. And this game is far from presenting a moral message that's in line with Catholic theology. There's a lot of talk about sacrifice to the gods, how the gods are weaker than the humans, one serves power, one serves pleasure, and then they both end up falling weakness to that. Overall, the whole God thing feels like it's a continual message that's been present for every Fire Emblem game that I can recall that relies heavily on the whole humans and their own individual strengths are enough to get by without divine intervention. However, that's not to say this game is without redemptive virtues, which may not particularly be Catholic in origin per se, but virtue in itself is a very good Christian thing. So that's what I'm going to talk about right now. First off, let's talk about Alm and Celica, the two main protagonists of the game. If I haven't mentioned it already, there's obviously going to be spoilers, because it's a Catholic review, so brace yourself. Anyway, the two of them have very different ideas of how they want to stop the war. This here's Alm, and he believes that they need to just go flat out to war against the Regalian Empire because of what they did to the previous king. So he chooses power. But the other thing is Alm also embraces the other side of the spectrum, which is, prosperity and pleasure. Alm thinks with his heart a lot, and a lot of people reprimand him for some of his choices because they say, well, Alm, that's not going to win a war. You got to keep your feelings to yourself. Near the end, he says, there's nothing wrong with personal feelings. It's my personal feelings that got us this far. Funnily enough, his contemporaries are also concerned that he's just from some backwater village and that he'll never make for a good ruler. But when he turns out to be a competent leader, one by one, the army eventually starts getting the idea of maybe birth and status don't necessarily make you a good or a bad ruler. It all depends on what you do with what you've been given. Just as Duma was given great power, and he abused it, which eventually became his downfall, Alm was just given his heart, and he used that to a magnificent degree, and never ended up losing himself. Now let's talk about Celica. Celica, you could say she's kind of a pacifist to a certain degree. She didn't want to resort to violence, and there's even a nasty but short-lived cutscene between her and Alm about how they're going about bringing the war to an end. She says that they should just talk to Milla, the Earth Mother, and figure out what happened to the land. Now, the thing about her is that she wants to go for Milla's angle, a more prosperous, peaceful way of solving things. But then she finds that along the way there are pirate raids, and so rather than going all out against the Regalian army, Celica's army gets into more minor skirmishes. But those skirmishes are necessary to protect those who can't fight for themselves. So a lot of their missions involve rescuing hostages and overall trying to more defend themselves. However, Celica comes across as cold and unemotional at first, but that could be far from the truth. However, while Celica and Alm both, to a certain extent, use their feelings as a way of allowing them to make heavy decisions, in Alm's case, I think he perfects his feelings, whereas Celica, even though she thinks long and hard, it's very easy for her to fall victim to the lies of the Duma faithful, who say that unless she offers her soul up to Lord Duma, that the land is just going to pillage and rot. And instead of trusting in her friend Alm that he'll come and save them, or that her army can find another way to win the war, she says that offering her soul up to a mad god who's lost all control somehow makes sense to her, and she does, and that causes Alm insufferable grief because he actually has to attempt to kill his friend. Yet, for some odd reason, the game gives no indication as to how she comes back to life. Overall, though, I like the dynamics of Alm and Celica's relationship. They never actually hate each other, despite the fact that they don't agree with how each other operates. They still have this mutual respect and friendship. A lot of chapters involve one or the other wishing the other good luck, and there are also times where Celica can project herself into Alm's reach so that she can offer him words of encouragement. And in some cases, they can even provide for each other the means of escape, even if it's as convenient as, oh, I have the brand. This hand. Oh, I have the brand. Boom. Now we're good to go. There's also the element of mercy, which is prevalent throughout the game. You know, when Alm kills an enemy commander, he wishes that there could have been a better way to do it. There's also the new villain, Berkut, which I say new because this is a remake and he wasn't in the original game. He kind of comes across as a whiny jerk at first, but you also have to understand his position. If you were an emperor, wouldn't you want what's best for your kingdom? And if Alm has all the control, wouldn't it be somewhat natural to be kind of upset about it? What's not so cool is that he resorts to unholy means to get what he wants. And then, as a result, he ends up not only offering his own soul to Duma, but he offers the soul of his wife. Now, his wife is the voice of reason here, because she says, we don't need to have an empire or a fancy title. I just want our love. But somehow he doesn't think love is enough, and instead thinks that he has to resort to power. And even though it's dubious how much, theology-wise, how even though he offered up his soul to a mad god that clearly is referencing the devil, because of where they fight him and the names of his soldiers, like Hades and Cerberus, for example, she somehow is able to reach out to him even after death to show mercy on him. And while it's understandable for her, because she wasn't the one that asked to be sacrificed, it's still uncertain about the fate of his soul. But then again, this isn't a strictly Catholic story per se, so I'm not going to try to overthink it. Suffice to say that it's probably more speaking of the virtue of Alm's character, that even after they've faced each other twice and Berkut has failed both times, when Alm finds out that they're family, he wants to show mercy on Berkut. Even when Berkut is possessed by a demon, Alm still is reluctant to give him the justice that he deserves, which is nice. There are other instances throughout that. Family is a big deal throughout the game, and relationships are important. To my knowledge, there's only one lesbian pairing, but thankfully they do not allow the option for that marriage. Remember, the Catholic Church teaches that homosexual activity is frowned upon, not being homosexual in itself. And apart from that, that's pretty much it. I mean, I would do the story an injustice if I were to tell you everything. But overall, the main satisfaction of being able to take down this power-hungry being by determination and the willingness to put compassion ahead of just being headstrong is a good driving force for a story that may not be necessarily overly Catholic, if at all, but it is, for the most part, a good virtuous story that talks about how basically if we allow for demonic intervention, that ultimately leads us to more pain than good. In fact, there are a lot of witches throughout the game that have offered up their souls to Duma for the sake of immense power, but then as a result, after they die, they say, why couldn't I have taken the right choice all along? And then there's nothing they can do about it, which is what Catholic theology teaches about the fires of hell. You know, people were given chances in life, and if they make the free choice to turn away from God, then, well, God can't go against free will, so he has to honor their requests. So if you're going into this looking for an extremely Catholic experience, you're going to be sorely disappointed. If you're looking for a good, touching story about two protagonists that want what's good but have different means of going about it, and if you're a fan of Captain America Civil War, I think you'll have a lot to like here. The only part that I would say is outright really disturbing from a Catholic standpoint is that Berkut's wife is, no joke, completely naked, although the game probably manages to contain a T rating because they technically don't show the intimate parts, but they technically do at the same time, even though she's all made out of fire. It's weird. It's really weird. And if only there was a way to skip that part of the game, but alas, that's a vital battle, so just say you've been warned. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and let me know if there's any other video games that I've beaten that I might be able to review from a Catholic perspective. And until my next video, keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye.